Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to talk about my hopes for the future for Total War. Now that we know that Creative Assembly are working on some possible new fantasy titles and also historical titles, well, I'm a little bit excited, especially as it's been very quiet lately, let's be very honest there. But new games is big hype, we don't know exactly when we'll start hearing about them properly, because this is very similar to how it worked originally when they announced Total War Warhammer, where they did a nonchalant post and then went dark for a while, and it's understandable, development does take a long time. Now, I'm thinking about the future in regards to certain games, because I'd like to see certain Total War titles come to light, and I'm hoping that Creative Assembly are turning a new leaf, providing us with what people have been asking for, especially with the pretty exciting and random announcement of Alien Isolation 2, to be honest. I'm feeling confident, pretty optimistic too, about the future of Total War, so let's jump right in. Before anything, a massive thank you to the sponsor of this video, Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is a platform where you'll be able to buy keys for games at a discounted rate. Gaming is getting pretty expensive and there's a lot of titles coming out recently, so if you want to get more games or even just get a pretty decent discount at some titles that you've been looking at, this is the place to go. Space Marine, Black Myth Wukong, pretty much anything is here. Hell, I picked up Frostpunk 2 here recently and I've been really having a lot of fun with it. I'm just waiting for more reviews on Silent Hill 2 before I make the plunge. And not only that, but we've been doing monthly giveaways with them. Our relationship's been quite strong and yep, win the game of your choice. You don't have to buy anything, you just have to sign up and click on the giveaway. All these links can be found in the description below. Making a purchase through this website also supports the channel at no extra cost to you. It's been a great push forward, especially as right now there's not been a lot of Total War talk, as you can imagine. So this working relationship has been keeping the channel going forward as I've been preparing some stuff. Nobody likes a Total War drat, believe me more than anyone else. So before anything, I don't really want to talk too much about Total War Warhammer 40k and also Medieval 3. I genuinely believe that since they did that post, those are the two games that are currently being made. It just kind of makes sense. The rumors for Total War 40k have been getting louder and louder, and right now Creative Assembly know that they need a win. I think both Medieval 3 and Total War Warhammer 40k would be that massive win to recuperate all the funds that have been lost recently because of, you know, the Hyenas issue and then Pharaoh not doing so well. I'm not ragging on Pharaoh here, it's a Bronze Age title. It wasn't going to be as massive as, say, for example, a Med 3, Empire 2, and all that different type of stuff. So I feel like these might be the ones that we might see sooner rather than later, and I imagine that we'll start seeing stuff next year regarding that, but not a proper release. I think that we'll start to see releases around 2026. It does look like Creative Assembly are being smarter about this and taking their time, because if you follow Creative Assembly for the past few years, by now we would have started hearing like really strong rumors regarding announcements and so on, or even an announcement if they were going to announce it to release next year. So if they're being a bit more cautious, well, that's going to be better for everyone else. Take your time, develop a good game, no broken launches, you know, Attila, Rome 3, Warhammer 3. If that is gone for good now, it will be better for everyone. Alright, so this might be surprising, but the first thing I want to see is a historical game, and I'd really love to see Empire 2. You see, Empire 1 was a pretty ambitious title, actually, considering that it had the different theaters of war, and it allowed for a massive scope. But Empire is a pretty old title, and imagine everything that's been learnt from these more recent titles regarding massive maps, such as the Immortal Empires, different styles of play with different factions. Now keep in mind obviously that a lot of the Empire factions would likely work the same, but there would be some differences depending on where in the world factions could be introduced. There could be a very big push with regards to just a lot of play. One thing I'd love to see is, rather than a title a year, and I think this is very important to talk about here specifically, I'd love to see bigger titles. Ones that start off a little bit small but expand from there, not in the style of Warhammer 1, Warhammer 2, Warhammer 3, but rather one universal title. Empire 2 could work in a very similar way like that. The perfect example here would be looking towards Crusader Kings or Hoi 4. Hearts of Iron 4 is a pretty old title by this point, but it's just been getting expanded over and over, and I think that is something that could work very well with a Total War format, provided that it does actually end up selling DLCs and does end up being profitable for Creative Assembly. So I think an Empire 2 could end up being like the Hoi 4 for the Total War series, just seeing a lot of love and just constant innovation. By the way, just as a quick disclaimer here, because I know some people are going to be a bit confused about this, I am not putting anything in any specific order when I'm talking about these games, so nothing is more important than the other stuff, and this is of course just my opinion. The next one is obviously a fantasy title, and I think a lot of people would like this. Middle-earth Total War, Lord of the Rings Total War, whatever they want to call it. Middle-earth is a massive thing. Lord of the Rings is just, in general, a huge fandom. We've seen loads and loads of mods actually be implemented into Total War, whether it's DAC for Medieval, the mod that's being worked on for Attila, but what if we had it done officially? You know, with a lot of support, with a brand new engine if possible, just something that would be really, really special. Obviously, right now, we've seen the downfall of Embracer, where they've split into multiple different companies, but one is Middle-earth Enterprises, I believe. That's what they're called now, and that's got the license there. Thankfully, Embracer seem to be dying a slow and painful death, but it does mean that they're shattering, and the license is going to get cheaper and cheaper to play around with. It's fairly obvious that right now it's too expensive, which is weird considering that a few low-budget games have come out. It's absolutely bizarre. But it could end up happening, and I think a Lord of the Rings Total War would be absolutely amazing. Between that and Warhammer, I'd just never leave my house again, to be honest. One thing that's very clear, it needs to follow the books or even the New Line Cinema license, which is the stuff that Games Workshop have access to for their Middle-earth Strategy Battle series, and stay the hell away for whatever the hell is going on in the Amazon studio. I've just... nothing of that. It wouldn't need to be a trilogy, it would just be one game, but it could get support for a decent amount of time. Start off with Rohan, Gondor, Isengard, and Mordor, and then expand it from there with the Angmar forces. Hell, they could use the stuff from Games Workshop. This would have to be for the same license as New Line Cinema, which is the one that Games Workshop uses. There could be a lot of factions. Haradrim DLC, Dunland, just a lot of different factions which could be implemented and could keep that game running for a decent amount of time. It could follow the Warhammer format in a certain way where you have characters being individualized rather than being in units, more so kind of like Troy, where the characters are strong but they're not horrendously overpowered and they can be taken down by individualized units. If you've just like got Aragorn by himself, he's not going to be able to take on, 400 different types of Urukai or whatever. But I think something like that would work, and it would definitely sell. Again, more so if they had the New Line Cinema license, because there's a lot more to play around with. Going back to another historical, there were all these rumors regarding a World War I title, and to be honest, I'd like to see it. I think Creative Assembly could do some more modernized warfare, Total War titles, and to be honest, Empire and World War I are very, very close. We're going to be seeing more modern style warfare, well, hyper modern, I guess, when it comes to 40k, so I think it might be nice to revisit other parts of history. Now, I'm not saying that it needs to happen first, mostly because, Med3 should take precedent there, and Empire 2 should also. But when they start going into other stuff, if this new rumored engine is actually happening, which I kind of believe, then they should have a little bit more freedom when it comes to that. I'm hoping that Total War Pharaoh not doing as amazingly as they probably would have expected doesn't discourage them from trying out other periods. The problem is that when you go to the Bronze Age, everyone's pretty much the same there, right? So it's a bit harder to sell. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty cool, but it should have just been an expansion for Troy and that's it. Experimentation isn't bad, but what should be done is, ask your fan base. I think that's a pretty good thing. We see that a lot with other companies. Paradox recently, for example, have been very open with the fact that, some ideas that they've done have failed, but they know that their bread and butter is Hoi 4, CK3, and that's where they're going to put a lot of focus on, and I think that's very smart to do. It doesn't mean don't look at other avenues, but make sure that your core avenue is being taken care of before you start experimenting. Lastly, we're going to talk about another fantasy title, and this is because I don't know, man, I think it could work. You see, fantasy sells. It does. It's very, very popular. It's because it's larger than life. It's got massive dragons or what have you. And very recently, Warcraft has been going up for an upturn. Interestingly enough, a developer at Blizzard said, we're kind of open to the idea about the possibility of franchising out, kind of like what Riot did with League of Legends. It could be interesting. Warcraft has a lot of wars, and it's something that could easily be done after the end of Warhammer Fantasy in terms of production. If it was up to me, Warhammer Fantasy with Total War Warhammer 3 would just keep on going, but yeah, it could be possible. They're kind of related in a sense, but also very different. It's a big historical timeline. You've got the First War, you've got the Second War, you've got the Third War, which I think everyone's more well-versed with because the whole situation with Arthas and stuff. There's a lot of factions. There's a lot of stuff that Blizzard are consistently adding to it. With the upturn recently with the War Within, which I've been playing a lot, to be honest, it does feel like Blizzard is in a good spot. Now, the problem is it doesn't seem like we're ever going to see a Warcraft 4 purely because of how the evolving nature of the world of Warcraft itself goes. So, what about a gigantic sandbox-style game in the form of Total War? I think stuff like that would work very well. Again, it's just a thought. I'm just throwing out some ideas because I've been kind of thinking about it a while. The problem here is it would be a direct competitor to Total War Warhammer, so I'm not sure if it could happen. You might be thinking, well, why would Lord of the Rings happen but not this? And that's pretty simple. It's just, Games Workshop sells Lord of the Rings minis, so they could still make money off it. It's something that we've got to talk about when it comes to Star Wars Total War also, because, yeah, competitive stuff, Games Workshop isn't the best company when it comes to dealing with healthy competition. They'll try and shut down stuff if they can. But we do have to talk about Star Wars Total War, because, there was a supposed leak. I'm still got a lot of doubts. I really do have a lot of doubts about this leak. But, yeah, I mean, it would be kind of cool. It would be kind of cool if it was based around the Clone Wars, to be honest. You could get a lot of different factions. The problem is that, we've been dealing with a lot of stuff regarding Games Workshop, with IP issues like the repeaters and stuff like that. You think that's bad? Wait till Disney gets involved. And I'd rather not have Disney and Sega working together. I don't know, man, it just scares me. I still think that there might be some truth to that leak, because Creative Assembly do float a lot of ideas around. We've heard from ex-members of CA who go, yeah, we originally looked at Star Wars as a possibility, and even Lord of the Rings. So, it's possible. If it's not Clone Wars, I don't want it. I think that's probably the best thing, because the Clone Wars was functionally done in terms of story with Lucas, but the original trilogy is still getting stuff added to it by Disney, and I just don't like what they're doing with Star Wars lately, and I feel like that could negatively impact a Total War Star Wars. I think the big thing here, and I think a lot of people would agree, the main things that need to come out over hopefully the next few years would be Med3, 40k, Empire 2, and Lord of the Rings. I think we'd all be eating good with that. And then afterwards they can start experimenting. But let me know what you guys think. I know there's a lot of Total Wars that people do actually want. Some people are talking about the Malazan Chronicles and so on, which would be kind of cool, but I feel like it's very hard to visualize. There was a lot of people saying Total War 100 Years War and stuff. I feel like big points and then expanding from there could work, but go for the big points first. I think that's really, really important. Again, this is just personal wish lists, and you guys will probably think differently. You guys might probably think the same. I just hope that Creative Assembly have learned from past mistakes and are not going to release something before it's actually ready. And that's also something to do with Sega, but yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.